Welcome back to another episode of One-on-One with Mitch Lafon. I'm your host, Mitch Lafon, joined by my two co-hosts this week, Mark Strigl of Talking Metal. Good day, sir.
Good day. How are you?
Good. Absolutely fantastic. And, of course, we've got Russ Dwarf of the Killer Dwarfs joining us from at home this time, not on the road. Taking a little break there, Russ, are you?
I am, Mitch. How you doing? Hey, Mark.
Good,
hey,
good.
How are you,
but
good.
The slave driver doesn't have you on the road working for the man?
No, I'm off. I think, and I thought I was supposed to be working on Friday, but I was informed by my wife that I'm not. So,
well,
that's
of
good
course,
for
the
me.
slave driver wasn't the wife. I was talking about management saying, "Hey, get on the road there, buddy."
Exactly. No, I think I'm off till a week Friday. I don't know, whatever day it is now. I'm home right now. That's the best thing.
That's the best.
And I survived a tornado the other day. So
that's right.
Where was that?
Right in my town.
Okay.
The tornado hit and just destroyed a bunch of stuff and put some guy in the hospital and stuff. I was actually out walking the dog, and this thing just came up out of nowhere. And the dog and I had to bolt home as trees were crashing around us, and he thought it was the funnest thing ever. He was jumping up and biting my arm. Yeah.
Now, when Russ, a rock star, says walking the dog, he means he was in his Rolls Royce with the window rolled down, holding the leash.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and then I woke up. I have a major head injury.
Exactly. So why don't we just talk about our guest today? A fascinating conversation with Francis Rossi of Status Quo, a band that's been around in one form or another since 1962, known as, the Scorpions back in the day, and then later on as the Spectres and Traffic Jam, and eventually Status Quo. And yet, in North America, you go Status Quo, and people go, who are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Unbelievable. 30 studio albums. They can tour Australia every year. They can tour the UK. They can get over to Japan. But they can't get a cab in New York. What's up with Status Quo over here? What are your thoughts of Status Quo?
The one thing I do remember about Status Quo from interviews I've done on Talking Metal is Dennis Stratton, who is the original guitar player of Iron Maiden. His band before Iron Maiden toured with them, opening up for them, playing, according to him, massive arenas like in the 70s and sellout crowds everywhere. So, yeah, apparently they were, and maybe still are, a big draw in Europe. But in the States, I would say not so much.
Yeah. Russ, have you toured with them, played with them, or been a fan of theirs?
Not really. That's another thing, too. I think it was more of a European situation with them, kind of like Slade or bands like of that ilk. And, they've been around 52 years, man.
Yeah.
Holy crow.
Yeah.
And honestly, I probably couldn't tell you a tune.
But what's interesting, what I find interesting, is that Status Quo is sort of the European version of Kiss, but without the makeup. And that is, they had sort of the frantic four guys, much like Kiss had Peter and Ace and Gene and Paul. A guy named John Coghlan on drums, and then, of course, Alan Lancaster on bass. And they left the band in the 80s, and they came back a couple of years ago, and they did this reunion tour. And of course, the fans are debating, the original four, the Frantic Four, you got to keep the Frantic Four. And Francis Rossi is saying, pretty much like Gene and Paul is, they play too slow. The gigs weren't as good. We really like the other guys. And so that's why the interview was set up. They have this Frantic Four's Final Fling live at the Dublin O2 Arena, coming out on CD, Blu-ray, DVD, etc., etc. And that was why the interview was set up. That's coming out in September, but in October they have something called Status Quo Acoustic, or AQUOSTIC, which some might say Aquostic, stripped bare, where they do all their greatest hits acoustically. And when I mentioned the Frantic Four, Francis went, "Yeah, it's great. Whatever. Let's talk about the acoustic album." So that was interesting as well. And when I asked him about his partner in crime, Rick Parfitt, who's recovering from heart problems and all that, instead of saying, "Oh, poor Rick," he was like, "Stupid bastard smokes too much."
So the love.
Yeah, I think Quo fans are definitely going to get a kick out of this interview. It runs just under an hour, and there's just a lot of bombs dropped in here. I said, "What are your plans for the future?" And he goes, "I just want to stay at home." So he's breaking up the band. He's pissed at his members.
Cool.
But you know what? Through it all, he was an absolute wonderful person to talk to. I enjoyed his honesty. He does declare what is the best Status Quo album, and he does declare what is the one that he would rather ignore, hope that his name wasn't on it. Fascinating conversation. So why don't we just sit back for the next hour and listen to Francis Rossi, Status Quo.
Fine.
Thank you.
Pleasure to speak with you,
All right.
Francis.
See you later. And you, how you doing?
Good. Nice and early over here in Montreal.
Oh, you're up there. I forgot you're up. It's funny, I was watching one of those world's worst weather things last night. There was a guy from Montreal was up that way when this huge flood had blown everybody's houses away, and his house was the only one standing, and I just thought he actually spoke with a French accent, which obviously to us down here, we think, pardon me. He's
Exactly.
Canadian. It's kind of weird. But I just saw that last night. And my daughter lives in Toronto, one of my daughters.
Oh, really? Toronto's a beautiful city. We're going to talk Frantic 4 Final Fling.
Well, yeah.
Among other among
you want
other
me to be
things.
enthusiastic, I take it.
Pardon me?
And you want me to be enthusiastic, I take it.
Well, sure. Or you could certainly talk about why you're not enthusiastic. Either way.
Well, whatever, yeah. I was speaking to people, and never mind, carry on, let's do it.
But there's a lot of
Ask
stuff
me
to
something.
talk about also. There's the, and correct me if I say this wrong, but Aquostic?
Yeah, well, I've got a thing with our manager. It looks like Aquostic, doesn't it? I think it could have been Acoustic Quo, something silly like that. But to be honest, these days, the whole idea of titles and marketing is not like it was in the early 70s when we get deep and meaningful. The thing is acoustic and it's Quo. Acoustic, Aquostic, fine, I don't give a shit. But it's a good album.
It is a good album. Well, actually, let's talk about that marketing. How have things changed in the last 30 years? I mean, from what my experience in the 80s, you put out an album, you put a video on MTV or the equivalent, Much Music or whatever it was in the UK. You went on tour, and money rolled in. It doesn't work like that anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think as well, there was there was much more product to be sold as such, and I know lots of musicians hate that expression, product, but we have become that.
Right.
It's not the 60s and the 70s where we can smoke a joint and be really meaningful and deep and be progressive about music and indulge ourselves somewhat. Most of the audiences these days are taking whatever they're taking is a lot faster than it was when we were in the 60s and 70s, so they're not smoking a joint. And then along came the Spice Girls, which some people think are marvellous. I thought they were rubbish. But I congratulate them on the idea that they use the industry against itself, kind of.
Right.
And it all became about marketing after that.
It really did.
And I think that's kind of understandable. We live in this world that's a capitalist world, and if it doesn't make money, it's fucked. I don't care how good the music is, it's got nothing to do with it. And probably that upsets musicians and people that are better musicians than me. I've been very lucky that with a little bit of musical knowledge, I've had quite a lot of success. And as I said, it's become so much about marketing that marketing will sell us any booking thing. And it had to eventually end up in rock and roll music, whatever music. It had to. Otherwise it would have died. And you said that you release an album, you get some play on MTV. Our industry, again, fucked itself over by allowing MTV to dictate to us all.
It really did.
The video initially was a fabulous promo tool because it meant you could visit 10, 15 territories in one day because you sent your video. Before that, one had to physically go. Then we allowed the video to take over to where perhaps those... what they called them, the new romantic vibes. You could see those guys in the 80s, they were so good at working in front of camera, whereas the guys from the 60s and 70s, we weren't. That didn't happen until later on. You learned to do that. These guys seem to have learned that before they actually played a gig. So it became very visual and more and more vacuous, I think. But in the end, it's the bottom line, you know. We didn't want it to become accountants. We didn't want it to be. We wanted it to become a music-y 70s. Well, it's not the fucking 70s, is it?
No.
It's like our parents saying to us, "Oh, it's not like the 30s." Well, we didn't give a shit about the 30s when we were in the 70s. So the same thing must happen now. So, us all looking back at the 70s or the 80s and saying, "Weren't they wonderful?" Well, some of it was wonderful, and some of it wasn't. And
most of it was wonderful.
Yeah, maybe. I find it very interesting because we had these discussions in the studio, and lots of us, as I really remember, say, from the 850s to maybe the early middle 90s. You could tell from the sound of the record what decade it came from, but we tend to think that all those records were made by these experts. We didn't have multi-tracks, really. We might have had 4-track, we got to 8-track, got to 16-track. The tape was weighed down, where there was drop-in stuff was a problem. You couldn't copy, and made by people that had started making tea and had no training whatsoever. We now have engineers that go through training courses. We've got computers, but the fucking bottom line is that melody. Do you like the melody? No. Yeah, but it's got the best bass player in the world on it. I don't give a shit. I don't like the melody. And I think that's where we've kind of gotten even more to today, is that a musical prowess is what impresses a musician, does not impress Mrs. So-and-so of Doncaster or Mrs. So-and-so of Montreal.
No, you're right.
She just likes that song.
Well, and
you
that's
hear that song, huh? Sorry, I talk too much.
No, you don't. But that's also why sometimes those one-hit wonders become these massive hits, because they don't care about who the bass player is, and they don't care about the drummer. They just want to hear something that makes them tap for 3 minutes, right?
Agreed, but I think we're all guilty. Not guilty. I don't think to say the word guilty is wrong, but we're all like that. I've always been like that. I think one of the things I like about myself, there's not many, is that I can hear something that I may think is a genre of music that I don't like, or an act that I don't like, and suddenly I hear this song and I'm solid gone. And that's the most fabulous scene I think you can have. And that is the common denominator, the lowest common denominator, Mrs. Singh of Doncaster. She just hears it and does la 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 la. I love that. She's not interested in the guitar solo. She's not interested in the harmonics or the fucking shredding the guy's doing or the bass fucking break. It's just, that's quite, nice that bit. Where's the song? La 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 la. And I'm afraid that's kind of the truth of it. All the great classical stuff is about the few bits of la 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 that we can all la la la.
Yeah.
And all the great opera, the arias, are all about the short little 2-3 chord piece that we can remember. I'm talking too much and too fast.
No, you're not actually. Since we're looking at the music industry in this larger picture, you're up to 30 studio albums.
Yeah.
We're 2014. The question sort of is, why bother at this point? I mean, you can certainly tour on your hits. The music industry, you put out a new album and people go, "Oh, great."
Say what? Yeah, I agree. Well, that was my feeling when the manager. We'd done these ads for Australia with Down Down, which turned over serious money, blah 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And we were doing one. We had to mock it up in Shepperton Studios in the film set, and we sort of mocked it up in the round and used. And there was something about it, and we'd done this version which was kind of similar to the album we'd done, and the manager and myself and Rick were kind of talking, and I said, well, no, I don't fancy doing that at all, really. I'm getting tired, I'd like to slow down a bit more, but stay home a little more. And I kind of agreed under pressure to do the album. I got Mike Paxman in, who's produced things for us before, who's out in the studio out there at the moment. And we went through 50 or 60 tunes, and then John, Andrew, and I, with Mike, sat there and started working them out. And then suddenly something clicked. I thought, this is rather enjoyable. For the first time in a long, long, long time, I had so much fun, or not, it's the wrong word. I enjoyed it so much.
Right.
Perhaps the creative juices got going because you were working with songs you kind of knew, and then you're at the I learned there that most of the stuff I've written crow-wise has been on the acoustic going jingy, 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 and then you turn it into this electric, and you put in instrumental passages and 2 solos maybe, Well, all that had to come out, so and I was still a bit reluctant in the first few tracks. It's quite enjoyable, and we were attempting Paper Plane, And I thought, this don't work, because it's a straight downstroke eights thing. But you can't do it, you know. And we got through it, and then late in the afternoon, probably 4:30, standing in front there listening, and I really like Paper Plane. And that was where the dawning came, because the same happened with Down Down. Yeah, I like Down Down, I like Paper Plane, we've known it for years. But suddenly this other slight, I really like Paper Plane. And that to me was it. That was the point of, I really understand this now. And I don't think we've ever done an album where there are so many tracks that I think, I love that, I love that, I love that, I love that. There's no deadwood. Perhaps the criticism is perhaps too many tracks, but they're all very short.
Right.
2 tracks that we've done that I really have never liked is one is Again and Again, and one is Drive My Car.
How come you don't like those?
At the end. No, and we were struggling at the end of one day, so we need some more songs for Rick to sing, you know, because there's not that many. And we've just done Again and Again, which seemed to work very well. Subsequently, we've had to change it, but I suddenly was standing in the garden. I said, well, why can't we do... And we all got very excited, so put it down on the phone. And then the following day we did Drive My Car, which I think is probably one of the better tracks of the album. And that to me that really is a great indicator. I don't like the song. Fuck me, I love this version. And that to me is the key of music. I don't, on the face of it, even like it, but it's doing something to me. Listen to that go. And that's, I think, the real joy of music over the years, where we want to intellectualise and become elitist about it. And there's this song I don't want to fucking like, and certainly, listen to that, I love it.
Let me ask you about that. Why? Let me ask you about those 2 songs, Again and Again, and Don't Drive My Car.
Yeah.
If you really don't like them, how did they make it onto your album in the first place? Back in the day, on Just Supposing and on If You Can't Stand the Heat.
When the lack of writing that Rick would do for many times, he wouldn't really bring in many songs. I would try and bring in, with Bob, we'd bring in 15 to 25, so you've got some you can throw out. Okay. With Rick, generally, he doesn't bring in that many, and I think that they're both written with Andrew Brown and somebody else. Again and Again, I thought was somebody with him was kind of taking the piss out of Status Quo. And with Drive My Car, I'm just thinking, don't drive my car. It's childish to me.
Right,
and I'm trying not to be too derogative about the thing.
No, but it's sort of like...
I really enjoyed playing on stage. I would always vote for doing it on stage. It was most enjoyable to play. But the idea of, don't drive my car, it doesn't really... I'm just a boy, my favourite toy. Well, fucking grow up then.
Yeah, it sort of seems to be an antithesis to the Beatles' "Drive My Car." You know, baby, you can drive my car.
That's probably what allowed it any light of day at all. But as I said, I've always enjoyed playing on stage. Instrumentally, it's most enjoyable to play, and I got a break from singing. But this version is like, oh my God, this is so good.
And speaking of Rick,
I think, as I said, that's the joy of music. I don't want to like it, but listen to it. I love it.
Speaking of Rick, how is he doing health-wise?
He's doing better than he was, but Rick's one of those... He's his own worst enemy, I suppose. He's supposed to stop smoking 10, 15 years ago, or drinking, and in the last year or so, since we've done the Frantics, I think Rick is really missing being stuck in the 70s. I can't be there. And I think he's really, really missing that. And he began to really, really drink more than I've ever seen him drink, and which obviously increases smoking. And he had a heart attack the other week. We were out on the road, and we woke up in the morning, and he'd been rushed off to the hospital. And somewhat, you know, I've known him a long time. He's my partner, and I feel for him. But there are times it's like you feel like smack his face, smack his bottom. You know what you're doing. You did it to yourself. Don't expect us to feel... And I've been the same way with many people in our business that happens to. And us as a society, we seem to sort of, do you know George Best, the famous footballer in England?
Yeah.
Years ago. And there's another one, Gascoigne, there's another famous footballer. People love them. And they're in such a mess that people seem to allow them, because it's like because we're in rock and roll, we've been indulged. Anybody else in any other walk of life would not be indulged so. And I believe that, same with Hendrix, with Nirvana guy, whatever his name was, and
Kurt Cobain,
Amy Weinberger, all those people. In the end, if we didn't indulge them so much at the time, they'd have had to get up and get on with it and stop drinking and behave. Because the rest of us could all be there, but it's somewhat self-discipline that stops us all being alcoholics or drug addicts, or in a mess or dropping dead, you know. So, yes, Rick's reasonably, nearly back to normal. Whether his physical strength has been impaired or has now weakened somewhat, we don't really know. We haven't done enough shows yet, and I dare say the winter will tell.
You said you're
he
probably.
must look after himself. I'm sorry.
No, I apologize, but you're probably the only person that can actually, at this point, you know, grab him by the shoulders and say, "Hey, look, what the hell are you doing?" Do you think that you need to do some kind of tough love or some kind of intervention, or just say, "Look, come on, we got a good thing going here"?
I've been there many times, which is why I'm so venomous about it now, because it doesn't work. Okay. And he will say, yeah, and I kind of feel for him here because I'm sure he intends to, but we all know that insidious little thing, cigarette for one. And his surgeon has said to him, he can use the electronic one. I've said, well, don't, because that's the thing that's keeping you there, the nicotine, leave it alone. And he can't. So now I believe he's taking in more nicotine than he did when he was actually smoking cigarettes. And the same with alcohol. We all know what that's about.
Yep.
So I do feel for him to a degree, because there are many, many of us. The whole system, the two worst things on the planet, and not heroin and cocaine, they're probably tobacco and alcohol. Because we're allowed to have them, and we fucking cannot stop. No. I still cannot stop. I still smoke 3 cigarettes a day. And I have to stretch them out because I will not let it beat me. So 3 I can function on. My voice functions. I don't get chest infections. But I can't quite stop.
Do you want to?
So I do feel for Rick in that respect. But there has to be a little bit, come on, Rick, come to the table and do this yourself. We can't do it for you. And we can't keep letting you fall over and what? Yeah. We lost too many shows and he's not insurable, all those things. So everybody... Yeah, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, if I can, and perhaps it's a bit of a mean question, but if he can't come back and get on stage, do you continue? Do you find somebody new, or you go, fuck it, man, you just screwed up everything?
I don't know, really. I'm at the point where, as I said, I'm 65 now. I'm going to be 66 real soon. And there's something in me. I'm quite enthused today as well. I'm not sure if I'm been getting depressed as I get older, blah, blah, blah. But there's something in... How old are you, if that's not a rude question?
46.
Actually, how old are you, even if it is a rude question?
I was born when the band was formed. So I was born on August 27th, 1968. Currently 46.
Well, another few years you might get it. I don't know, but I'm getting to that. Occasionally I just want things to stop.
Right.
I just want things to come to a conclusion. But one of the things I loved about this business and probably hate is it never comes to a conclusion. No. I'm talking about Product With You, 2 separate talks of Product With You, which is coming out next week, which is going into the following year. But I just want it to stop and you've done it. It's like the feeling you get at the end of each show, which is why I think I like touring, is at the end of each show, the feeling of achieved and finally done something and finished it. But I'm getting to the point where I'd perhaps like it to finish. Kind of, done, well done, congratulations, you're finished. There's your prize, go and take yourself a rest.
Right, but like you said, you can never finish. You can never finish.
I don't know.
You'll be sitting on the beach and that melody will come to your head and you go, oh, what's that? I got to get it on tape.
I didn't say I wouldn't make music. I didn't say I wouldn't record or do what. I just want this thing to stop where it's incessant. And it's been like this since I was 12, and at 12 or 13, the responsibility of this has been so much. I do love certain facets of it, but there's got to be a time. I didn't say I'm going to become a vegetable. I just don't need to keep. I think when I've often told the story, the very first show I did, I wouldn't go on until Alan Lancaster's mother got there, because this could lead you into the Frantics. Right. And I've realised recently what it was just a delay, because I'm actually frightened of going on and always have been. I'm not nervous, sometimes nervous, but generally not nervous. I'm frightened that something's going to go wrong. We just got back from Moscow. We did a corporate in Moscow. And even there, you can kind of, some corporates, you can just kind of think, it's like money for old rope. They don't care. They're all pissed. But something still frightens me about going on in case something goes wrong. And the older I get, the more intense the fear gets just before we go, or the day of the show. If I was working tonight, I'd be a different man today. And I'm kind of getting tired. That's what it is, I think. I am 65. I thought we'd be finished at your age. I thought I'd be finished at 30. Shit, oh, I'm still here.
It's a testament to your music. Let me talk to you quickly about being nervous. The first time that I saw Status Quo in my life, really, was at 7 a.m. on July 13th, 1985. Live Aid popped onto Much Music, our music channel, and here was Status Quo. Were you nervous about that? Because here you had a billion-person audience. You had satellite technology that could have dropped dead at any minute. You had the Prince of Wales. I mean...
Yeah. That was the one day that I was actually... And I learned from that day because... Rick and I, we're very good at promo, and particularly in England, so we have these cheeky chappies and they stick us on everywhere, and there's a little double act goes on, and we're quite good at it. And so we were doing all the promo, and main question was, are you nervous? I thought, if anybody asks me that one more time, I'm going to smack him in the face. Stop asking me if I'm nervous. I walked on that day, I was fucking nervous, and there was another show we did a little while after for Noldorf Robbins. That I was really nervous on, so... I've worked on not being nervous. Neither of us get nervous. There's some adrenaline comes up before you go on. I didn't say I was nervous about doing the shows. I'm frightened of things going wrong. It's fear.
Right.
It's not quite nerve shakiness. I'm not, oh, goodness me. No, I'm frightened that something may go wrong. And when things go wrong in the middle and you're in front of X thousand people, I want to crawl into a hole.
Are you a perfectionist?
I still have that thing that I won't have that fear anymore.
Are you a perfectionist, which is why you have fears that things are going to go wrong?
People keep saying I'm a perfectionist. They've said it to me a lot. I don't think I'm anywhere near a perfectionist. But some people seem to think so. I'm just frightened that things go wrong. Nothing wrong with that. It's gone wrong. Right. It's not being perfect. Wrong's completely fucking wrong. I didn't say it to be perfect. My guitar playing's far from perfect. The band is far from perfect. Particularly the Frantic one is far from perfect, but people love it. And that's, but you know, as I said, when I was 13, and I say this about a lot of us people in show business, we're desperate to be loved, to be liked, to be anything, to have a fan club, buy my records, look at me. And Kate Bush has just come out on the road in England,
right?
And she's not doing any of her hits. I'm thinking, well, what the fuck not? Who are you then? So I find that we have to be careful that we get carried away with ourselves and think, oh, I can't do that anymore. When she, like me, like everybody, Madonna, whomever you think, even Presley, if you like, whoever the biggies were, we all started in that same place. Oh, I want to be famous. I want to be liked. Otherwise, we'd have stayed fucking home and practiced our music and become a boring musician. There's something about us that needs to be liked and loved. We have a career comes past and then we say, oh, I can't do that anymore. I find that an insult to the audience, and it becomes to me as pompous. And I really like Kate Bush, but I don't think that's very good that she's not doing any of her stuff. And we all go through that, or lots of people go through that. And it's a great way of shooting yourself in the foot. You are your product.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me ask you about famous. You know, in the UK or in Europe, Status Quo is this larger-than-life band, as big as Kiss or Aerosmith or any of those bands. You come to North America, Montreal, for example, and you're more of a cult band where... What happened? Why didn't you conquer the American market or the North American market?
I think there were a few reasons. When we first broke in England with this sort of psychedelic thing, lost it, and had to struggle to get it back. We got it back maybe 72, 73, started coming to America. We were making money all around Europe after a struggle, bearing in mind that all bands, particularly at that age, our age and that period we were in, did not last long. It was all still fairly new.
Right.
The idea that a band would get at our age and still be doing this, just don't be so stupid. It was going to be, you'd be old at 30 and it'd be finished if you were lucky.
Right.
You'd be lucky to last till you were 30. So there we were going around America, coming back home broke. going around America, coming back home broke. This is fucking silly. Plus, we were very intimidated by the American thing for some reason. We'd grown up watching American television and so on, and I think we actually very found that intimidated by American accent, by American confidence and all those things.
Right.
If not, it was the opposite, that we thought was all bullshit, perhaps, some of us. We didn't have American representation. I was asked one day, which was very cleverly put to me, how would you like to have an American manager? I said, fuck off. Let's shut that problem down. Well, the question should have been, we have no representation in America. As soon as we leave, it goes dead. We're going to. I'm going to have to give away some of the management, of which giving away nothing of nothing is nothing.
Right.
So all these things contributed to us not doing it, not continuing. And then we took a view and said, look, if this is all over in 3 years' time, and we've pissed all our money away, and we're 30-odd years old, and we pissed it all away chasing the American dollar, we would look and feel and justifiably be so-called foolish.
Right.
So we settled with what we had. In retrospect, it would have been lovely to be working Canada, because my daughter lives there, and working America. I would love to be there. My wife's American. So for years I was hoping that my mother-in-law would know who the fuck I was, but she died not knowing. I love my own jokes, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. But yeah, it's just remarkable to me that, you know, I can watch the YouTube clips and I can watch, you know, over the years and the press and, you know, Classic Rock magazine and all, and then you come over here and it's as if the band didn't exist. And I've just always said, wow, how is that possible? How can a guy lead off Live Aid, been around already at that point for 20 years almost, and here, I mean, your music is as, you know, rocky as anything Aerosmith has done, anything Kiss has done.
We were working together a few weeks ago after Aerosmith in somewhere in France, I believe. I got on well with Tyler. But it's all that thing. I think Foghat, in the end, there was an English band that became and started to do what we did over there. We just pulled out at the wrong time, probably.
Right.
But maybe, I think Rick and I would have killed ourselves on various drugs. We'd have been overindulged. So I think that would have been... So, as much as I would like to have had the extra money or the extra fame or whatever it is to be, I'd love to be huge in America, because I love America in lots of ways. And it's not right for an Englishman to say that. But I think we probably did the right thing, although you can see where maybe, well, that would be good, that would be good. We probably did the right thing, not doing that.
Yeah, it certainly would be.
I mean, as I said to you, if you said to my wife is American, I've got 4 children with that, and they all look like Americans, sound like Americans, and I wanted them to have their American. And my American wife is gesturing in moments. She thinks I understand sign language, and I don't. Excuse me. What is it, my love? That's it. So yes, it would be great for me to be a name in America, but I'm very happy with what we got, and I'm getting tired, as I said.
Yeah. Now, you know, we set up the interview today to talk about this Frantic 4, and we haven't spoken much about it. So if we can, let me ask you a couple of questions about that. And I know that we've already hit half an hour here, but
I'm fine. Keep going.
Good. Thank you. John Coghlan. He, in the early 80s, basically walked out on the band, and at some point...
No, he was sacked. That's unfair. I can't say that he was sacked. That would be unfair to say he left.
Okay.
It's not fair to him. We did have to throw him in. That was me who pushed.
So, but the result is that he left the band, and at some point he tried to sue the band or have injunctions, or, you know, it got a little dirty, for the lack of a better word.
Got very dirty, and particularly with Alan Lancaster, got very, very dirty.
Right.
Tried to sue us for 30 million, blah, 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 blah.
So here you are in 2013, 2012.
Yeah.
You're doing this movie with Alan Parker, and the guys come back in. And the question is, there's 2 questions. First of all, you've already established another formation of the band with you know, new guys, for the lack of a better word. How did that play out? I mean, was it worth it? Was it good? Is it bad?
We're doing Australia. We do Australia probably every 2 years. Right. Our current manager, who's been about 12 years, if not more, Simon Porter, was in contact with Alan Lancaster, who kept trying to sue us. Alan Lancaster had been led round by the nose by one of those lawyers, no win, no fee.
Right.
They then got John Coghlan involved with the two of them because the lawyer, subsequently we've learned this, the lawyer knew that the case that John Coghlan had against us was a very tiny issue and was winnable. So when they lumped together the two actions, no win, no fee, they won the John Coghlan action, which was a pittance, which meant that it left Alan Lancaster with a bill for all the legal fees for one. And it was only that our manager took and kept looking that suddenly Alan Lancaster realised he'd been conned by these lawyers. And I'm in Australia, and I was in my manager's room, which is unusual, nothing sexual there. And then he said, Alan's on the phone, do you want to talk to him? I said, not really, but yeah, all right. So this is the guy I started the band with, remember, when we were 11.
Right.
So I said, hi, Al. He said, I'm sorry. I said, beg your pardon. He said, I'm sorry. He said, I've just felt, someone's shown me Simon. I've been head on, blah, 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 blah. As soon as he said I was sorry, it all went to me. The fact he was still trying to sue us for 30 million just went. And then I realised he'd been had, and I know he's a little British bulldog, typical type. You poke him enough and and they just kept poking him and saying the right things. And after talk, he came to the show that evening. It was very nice to see him. He's slightly incapacitated. Something had gone wrong. We suddenly found, subsequently, after touring together, our PA, the Chinese one, that had pushed and said, there's something in that hair dye you're using. He's been dyeing his hair. Silly ass. That the Paul McCartney, we call it the Paul McCartney chestnut look. It's an Italian thing. And so then it was possible to tour. The possibilities were there. And then obviously John Coghlan wanted to do it. Alan wanted to do it, but they have not toured anywhere in the same class or the amount that Rick and I have. So Rick and I have come forward a long way in terms of how we play better than we used to. We're used to how the business works there. They still seem to be in the 70s, and there's nothing wrong with that if that's where they want to be, but you can't be out on the road like that because it doesn't work like that anymore.
Right.
Everything, as we were going right back to the beginning, it's become slick. It had to become slick, otherwise it's costing money. In the 70s, it didn't matter. These days, if it's going to happen at 4 o'clock, it happens at 4 o'clock, not 2 minutes past or 2 minutes to, and everything's like that, and they were having great difficulty with that. The original things that probably went on in the band, I said to John Coghlan in Manchester, we would still end up splitting up, don't you? He went, yeah. Well, you could sense it. Alan Lancaster gets very, I don't know, it's just his way, I love talking to him. I meant to speak to him this morning, actually, but he's very funny. He makes me giggle like he did when we were 11. But and every night in the middle of the set, at roughly the same point, his hand would seize and he couldn't hold the plectrum anymore and he'd have to stop playing. And that was, oh, fuck, what the fuck are we doing? John Coghlan would get nervous like he would at certain times and miss things.
Right.
And initially the first tour, the reason I agreed to do the second one was that the first tour I felt that we'd kind of cheated the audience. Things were slowing down, we weren't rehearsed enough and so on. And so, oddly enough, John came to see us a few weeks ago and asked me if I had these things. We get these things from Germany. It's a little like B12. Instead of in a shot, you get it you can drink it, a small shot. And years ago, when John used to freak out, which he did occasionally, he would be sent back to London to see Dr. Robert in Harley Street. And Dr. Robert would give him a B12 jab and say whenever he goes and flips, he's got a vitamin deficiency of B12, so give him peanuts. So he had these on the tour. He was on the second tour. John was fine. He could manage to hold tempo and didn't slow down, whereas the previous tour, completely oblivious to the fact that he's slowing down, had no idea whatsoever. So on the second tour, all credit to John Coghlan because he stayed with it. But Alan's physicality was a problem.
Right.
He stopped at the same point every night in the set. His hand would seize up. Subsequently, the video and the take from the very last night in Dublin 02 there was a fabulous feeling in there, and I think it's possibly gone down. I don't listen to them or see them, but I'm hoping it went down on the DVD and it's told it sounded and felt good. And I think what Rick is missing about the Frantics, he keeps imagining, well, when we did the Hammersmith Odeon, I keep looking up now. I'm looking up and I can see these people who are masturbating and ejaculating what are they doing? What are they so... I couldn't see what they were seeing. I couldn't hear what they were hearing. But they were loving it like I've never seen before. And so whether I was uncomfortable with it, whether I think it's good, bad musically or not, they got what they wanted. And that was one of the reasons they did it. Alan loved it, John loved it, and so did the audience. I think even Rick loved it because Rick loves the adulation from an audience. Rick doesn't see that one goes to work an audience. Rick likes to just soak up. That's Rick. And so I think that's mainly said about the Frantics.
Yeah, well, I'm just asking, just because, does it hurt the brand at some point? Because, you've established Status Quo as something without...
I'm not sure.
No? Okay.
It's a good question. Sorry to keep you interrupting. I listen to the question and I see what's going on. I think that's a very good point. I'm not really sure. I think there's enough of a divide between the two because what we call the hardcore, the old hardcore, would nenever come and see the new band.
Right, which is
and
silly.
The people that come and see the new band and don't even know who the old band are. So, and I'm sure, there are a few. I'm being extreme there. There are some hardcore that do come and see both bands, and there's some fringe that come and see both bands. But on the whole, most people will not see the two bands. There's a divide,
Yeah, listen,
totally different ballgame. The current status quo, to me, is the logical progression of where it should go. A band should improve. They should improve en masse, and they should improve as individual players. It should become more slick. And as I said, we live in a world that is driven by budget and so on. And you either keep up with that, or you become a dinosaur and you disappear and fall away. So, but as I said to John Coghlan, this band would still have split up if it stayed together, or if it got back together. It would still split up.
You mentioned both John slowing down and Alan seizing up. Physically, how were you on stage? As you become 65, and look, I'm only 46, and I know that my knee hurts and my shoulder hurts. And
oddly enough, you're a guitarist. No,
I'm just a rock reporter.
Well, because in the last few years, all of us, John Edwards, myself, had a serious problem with the left shoulder. Shoulders begin to hurt, and on the Frantic somewhere, I did something with my knee, and I've got it bound up again now. In this gig in Moscow the other day, the steps, their health and safety shit, Christ. I stepped out of this caravan, and one of the steps was the wrong height, so and the knee went again. But to answer your question, I've worked out since I was 35. I began to work out slightly, and I've had a trainer. We go once a week to the same sushi place, and I love that. I'm looking forward to that. And he'll be here at 5 today, and I can manage about 40 minutes now after I have a lot of physio with the leg. But I still work out and stay fit. I have to try and stay fit. I do 8-minute abs before we go on, so that, and I don't want to. I'm lazy like anybody else, but when I do it, I notice the singing's better, the breathing's better, and I feel better on the stage. And I physically want to be narrow. I've always been pretty thin. And I don't think a pencil with flab round it looks very nice, so I try and stay fit. Whereas Rick won't. John tries a little bit. Andrew walks the world dry, which is why Andrew stays quite fit. And Leon, our new drummer, is 35, and even he said, I better start getting fit. This is hard work, this job. So he's starting to get, he's going to Chinese, he's taking for yoga, and him and I tend to do the 8-minute ab thing to try and stay fit. The thing about the status quo, which I know people love to knock it, but there is a physicality going on. And the people that do appreciate who's who and what status quo, I realise that the physicality is part of it. I know Steve Tyler, people like that do, that work. Mick Jagger does. The people that work that physical thing realise that, you have to be in reasonably good condition to be there for an hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever it is. And for me personally, anyhow, I want to feel that way. I like to feel that way, Some sort of fitness. I don't want to And although I said I want to retire, that means I want to just sit there and bloat out and become a veg. No. I will still work. I can't believe I have a trainer. I'll be working out at 5 o'clock today, and I lie there with my trainer sometimes saying, "This is fucking stupid. I'm 65. I thought we'd be dead in a box before this, but no, and I'm still working out." And so I'm kind of glad about that to some degree.
Yeah, and listen, you've got 3 releases coming up in the next, from this month in October. You've got the Status Quo Live box set, you've got the Frantic 4, and of course you've got Acoustic, so...
Yeah, busy time, huh, for an old bastard.
Yeah, absolutely busy. I guess
I'm looking forward to the Acoustic thing because I'm frightened of it, because I don't know, I've never done this before. All the shows I've done, I've never done this thing before we're about to do. And in the moment, it doesn't even exist. We haven't rehearsed it, we haven't played it. There's going to be about 16 people on stage, I think, with a string section, a percussionist, an accordionist, 4 or 5 in the band, where we're using John Summers to beef up the acoustics somewhat. And it's something we've never done before, so I'm quite apprehensive but excited about. I wonder what people will think. And as I said, I'm so turned on by the album. I really need to get it out there, because usually past release date, then for some reason, once it's too late to change it, it all becomes very clear to you how good or bad the project is. While we're still pre-date, you're kind of, yeah. So I will really know the date past release date, what the actual product is like. But I don't, as I said at the beginning, I can't ever remember being as excited about a project as this one. Whether it's because I know that all the melodies most of the ones have been hits, and most of the tracks came from hit albums.
Right.
I'm hoping it. I don't know what I'm hoping, but somehow
that it resonates with the fans.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. You're a journalist. Sure.
I get paid for all these words. But
that's beautifully done. But yeah, something like, I suppose that's the insecure little show-off for me, or the thing I do love about this. It's justification, or maybe I'm waiting for my parents to pat me on the shoulder, good boy, or maybe I need it from the audience. There's a good boy. We like you, you are doing all right. And that affirmation of success. Because I think insecure little show-offs, we need that affirmation that we're successful. And maybe, again, coming up to wanting to retire, maybe I'm okay now, maybe. But the feeling I've got about this project, I don't think so. Otherwise, I wouldn't be caring about the project. I wouldn't give a shit. But I really need to know what people think. I really want to hear them say, "My God, that's fantastic," don't I? Like I've always wanted.
Well,
and we were talking in the studio saying it could be all of us. We know the material. We love the material. It could get to the point of release date and people go, so what? Oh, fuck.
It's true.
That will be. I don't know. I won't understand, put it that way.
But that must be with every album. I mean, with the 30 studio albums, you get in there for 8, 9, 10 months, a year, you're making all this music, and then you release it, and then some albums are hits, and other albums people went, oof, what the hell was that?
I know, I agree, and that's again part of what we love and hate about it. But there's something else with this. Whether it's because like I said, we've got Paper playing on Matchstick Men's on Rock and Roll is on there, Drive My Car, Mystery Song, Dust Pipe. There's fucking loads of them, and most of them have been hits. And as I said early on, but suddenly you realise the melody itself is what you like. Oh. Now, if there are people out there, which I'm sure there are, which is most of the people, can't stand the noise that band make. But maybe they'll like the melody when the noise has gone. Maybe that's what we're thinking. I don't know, but I can see myself when I say this to you, standing out in the studio out there, listening with this look on my face of joy and pleasure and pride, if you like. Wow. It's lovely. And I can't understand what. It may be purely self-indulgence. It's like playing with one's willy. Oh, I could play with this for fucking hours. It's lovely. And everyone says, no, it isn't. Well, I think it is, don't I? Great analogy, don't you think?
I got to say, I've really enjoyed this chat, and you strike me as somebody that's very honest. So I don't ask this to other artists, but I'll ask you, what is to you, the absolute best Status Quo album, and which is the one that you think is just the biggest frickin' mistake, should never have happened?
Biggest mistake was the second or third covers album. I didn't like doing covers album in the first place.
Right.
It's just, I don't know, it's like insult to injury, and Steve Tyler will tell you that one as well. And so with Metallica and various people, it's just something wrong with doing. Best album, I don't know. I really loved In Search of the Fourth Chord.
Right.
But I suppose, if I'm really honest, no.
And not
From the early period, it was probably On the Level, because I think On the Level was finally getting a nice balance of rock, a bit of commerciality, and it was, recording-wise, it was a bit more flavours. I mean, it wasn't so one-faceted as the first two or three. Of this current band, probably In Search of the Fourth Chord, I think, or Heavy Traffic.
Yeah, so
I think, for years I've heard how wonderful the band are, and I've always said, yes, and it's the same with all bands that have been around a long time. There are some really great moments on some of the albums, coupled with some real shit. And I think that's 90% of bands on music, because your first couple of albums, if you've got it in, you're good, and then in the end you go, what do we do next? If you do something, you try going too far different, it's not who you are. You stay where you are, the same old thing. And there's this danger that people could say, I'm looking for something new. I'm not looking for anything new. I'm just looking for something that excites me. Yeah. I don't listen to the radio and go, it doesn't sound new enough to me. I hear something, I just love the fucking melody. I can't. And I was like going back to the beginning again, that's one of the joys of music. It hits you, and it's like you're disarmed. There's nothing you can do. There was Pet Shop Boys. I've always had a bit of aggro between us and them, and about a year or 2 years ago they had a song. Oh, I love that. I had to get the PA to send them a mail, about. I hate to admit this, you guys, but I fucking love your new record. And they said, fantastic, thank you very much. Do we see there might be a Quo cover of this song? So I thought it was funny, and it was them growing up, rather than how dare you. And then early this year, I got the radio on, and somebody I've known for a long, long time, Rod, came on with this track, Beautiful Morning. And I could see myself standing in front, and I turn it up a bit. Oh, fuck. Turn it up a bit more. Oh, fuck. Turn it and listen to that. That's wonderful, Rod. I had to get the PA to send him hate to admit this, Rod, love the record, lovely song, lovely bridge, lovely solo, love everything, lovely vocal performance. And he said back, old friend, dear Francis, blah, 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 blah. Thank you for saying that. P.S., do we see a Status Quo cover of Beautiful Morning? And it's like all these people have suddenly grown up. We all started as young. And he's suddenly thinking, will you do a cover? And that shows you, again, today's, even though he had what we call a hit in this country, it wouldn't even pay the fucking price of the meal on the album. You know what I'm saying these days? But we all still do it for that insecure little mark of success, which is the position in the chart, or you're on the radio. It means nothing in terms of hardcore cash or what it does. Doesn't necessarily put bums on seats even. But we're all still hanging on to radio play and a position in the chart. Fatuous twats that we all are.
Now, we're way, way, way over time, so let me just end with this. Are you going to get back in the studio at any point for a new album with new songs? Not covers, not acoustic versions?
I don't know, because the last one we did, which was...
Bulo Quo?
Before Bulo Quo, that was a movie one.
Quid Pro Quo.
That was a...
Quid Pro Quo.
Yeah. Yes. I thought it was a really, really good album, but it was almost like we'd gotten down to where AC/DC are, all about the same BPM, all about the same key. And whilst I thought it was very good, I thought, well, it was lucky that we did the movie because there was nowhere left to go. And again, it's lucky that this one came along because I didn't know what to do rock-wise.
Okay.
So if this one's a success, I may consider doing another one of these because that's a logical business move.
Yeah.
And as much as I want to be a dark, mysterious muso, I have to understand the business today, and I do. If this is a success, we're likely to do another one of these. I don't really want to try and struggle and find
Inspiration?
As I said, that other album, they were all same BPM. I loved it, but it was almost like we'd finally arrived at where people said we were in the first place. It's all the same.
But you wouldn't say you were a parody of yourself at that point?
No, not quite parody as such, but you can see what I mean. They were all, lots of the stuff was in the key of A, and lots of the BPM were the same. Right. So it's very difficult to lace together, and it sounds like AC/DC. I love AC/DC, but we're not them. Status Quo albums have always had dips and pies and lows, and Rick's little ballads and Lancaster's weird ones, or whatever. A nice diverse kind of mix of material, which is why I said I loved On the Level. It was good. The material was getting nicely diverse by then.
Yep, absolutely.
So then to arrive at that album, and it's all pretty much the same. So I'm answering your question as best I can.
No, but then again, after 30 studio albums, at some point, I guess there is going to be some repetition because, I mean, how many bands to have that? I mean, the Beatles only had, 6 or 7? Kiss has 20. Aerosmith has, I think, 18. I mean, 30, that's a lot of songs. No. That's a lot of music. So you can be forgiven if you've repeated yourself.
Yeah, I think that's obvious. We must have done. And I take some solace the fact that most people say that Bach, once he'd done his stuff, there's nothing you can't do that he hasn't, any progression or sequence of notes he hasn't done before. Yeah. So as I said to you, this thing that some musicians have, they want to be different and new and find fresh. It's bullshit. You just want to find something, I love that song, whatever it is. Whether it's Sheryl Crow, what the fuck it is, I don't know. But you suddenly hear a song, I love that. And I remember, we'd done Heavy Traffic album, there was a track, 20 Wild Horses, which I can sometimes play with my knob and I'm listening to, I like it that much. And I just got back with my estranged father at the time, and he was sat in my music room, and I played him. He said, I like that, son, I like that, And then at the time, I think the Shania Twain album had just come out. You're the one that I love, and I loved that, and again, you weren't supposed to. And I put it on, and my dad, he kind of went into contortions. His body went, and I thought, that's where I get it from. And that's that thing that music should do to you. You shouldn't be able to intellectualize or let the brain involve, what will people think of me if I like this? I just like it, and that's the crunch. Do you like it? Yes. Do you not like it? No. No more questions.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And that's how I see music as well, too.
Good man.
So, some people love Kate Bush and Bjork. I don't get it, but, sometimes I hear a song by Poison, and I love it, and I don't want to explain it. I just want to enjoy those 3 minutes.
And I'm with you 100%. I don't want to explain it. I just fucking love it, yes.
Yeah.
And that's the joy of music. Thanks, Mitch. You're right. I've overrun.
Thank you, Francis. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And you. Thanks very much for letting me talk.
Bye-bye now.
Francis Rossi of Status Quo. And before we get back into the episode, let's just mention that this episode of One-on-One with Mitch Lafon is brought to you by the Melodic Rock Fest 4, taking place October 3rd and 4th in Arlington Heights, Illinois, and featuring performances by Mitch Malloy, Heaven's Edge, Seventh Heaven, and many more.
And of course, for ticket information, visit melodicrockfest.com. And of course, go visit melodicrock.com. This is Andrew's site, and he's put this all together. Fascinating talk, though, with Francis, didn't you think?
Absolutely, Mitch.
Yeah, I think, listen, if this was a Kiss interview and Gene had been saying that kind of stuff about Paul, I'd probably have my ears tweaked up going, ooh, wait a minute, what's that about? So, good conversation, and of course, check out their new album, The Frantic Four's Final Fling, live at the Dublin O2 Arena, and of course, check out Aquostic Stripped Bare, that comes out in October. Voila.
Perfect.
Another fabulous episode. I guess that's all, folks. We should mention, of course, that this is part of the Talking Metal Digital Network, and check out Mark's show, Talking Metal, on whatever. What are you on?
Talking Metal, iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker.
TuneIn, yes. And of course,
yes.
And of course, check out Russ Dwarf and the Quiller. That's right, the Quiller Dwarves.
Oh my God! Sunday night, everybody's in a coma.
Yeah, it's well, unfortunately, I just took some Benadryl. But check out Russ Dwarf and the Killer Dwarves, Amazon, iTunes. But do like everybody else, just go to YouTube and watch the songs for free. Right, Russ?
Yeah, just goggle at you kids.
Why bother supporting your band by actually buying the music?
Absolutely, because Gene Simmons said rock is dead.
Gene should just not talk. Anyway, there you go, folks. That's it.
Sweet.
That is episode 45 of One on One with Mitch Lafon.